This is how British children are being taught to read the Quran. In a Muslim faith school in the north of England. Here's what 11-year-old Muslim children are being taught about non-Muslims in a full-time secondary school.
Allah has said that the disbelievers, they are the worst of all the creatures.
And what they're told about other Muslims.
A person who's got less than a fistful beard, then you should stay away from him the same way you stay away from a serpent or a snake.
In a school that inspectors have praised for its religious teachings.
This is like a hate preaching.
We won't allow this to happen to white kids going to Sunday schools.
We are going into full-scale social segregation and separation. And unless we tackle that now, we will reap the whirlwind.
Dispatches investigates how some faith schools are operating behind closed doors.
Can I just talk to you for a second? What have you got to hide? Can't you just open the camera? Why are you hiding away from the camera?
There are at least 2,000 Muslim faith schools in Britain today, both part-time and full-time inspected schools. Dispatches has been filming Undercover and has found children being taught a hard-line, intolerant and deeply antisocial brand of Islam, and pupils as young as 6 or 7 being routinely hit and kicked. What we've discovered raises huge concerns about the private world of faith schools. Our investigation started 2 years ago. Darul Uloom Islamic High School in Birmingham is a full-time independent secondary school, inspected by government-approved teams. It's required to teach tolerance and respect for other religions. But we went undercover because we had gathered evidence of extreme intolerance. Our reporter started here as a volunteer. He was allowed to sit in on some lessons like maths, but they wouldn't let him into their Islamic classes. So in July last year, he went into one of the rooms where we'd heard they teach Islamic studies. And he left a hidden camera there. At first, our camera records exams and prayers. Then the pupils are arranged into rows for a school assembly.
Okay, get in possibly.
The speaker addresses all the pupils aged 11 and upwards. He starts by talking about people who worship ridiculous things.
But there are some people in the world who decide not to use the intellect. They are happy worshipping idols, who worship the cows. It's the Hindus, isn't it? Like the Hindus, they worship the cows.
This is how he describes Hindu religious practices.
If we choose to worship such ridiculous things, a cow. Now, how can anyone worship a cow? First thing he does is he rides that cow, he sits on the cow, his God, he sits on his God, and at times he needs to clean for his God. At times God steps over him. At times God goes to sleep. At times he eats God when he's hungry. Yeah, cows. And funny enough, they drink the piss of a cow.
He says it's not the first time he's given this speech. In 2009, government-approved inspectors praised the school for its interfaith teaching, saying,
"Pupils learn about the beliefs and practices of other faiths and are taught to show respect to other world religions."
It seems the inspectors weren't aware of teaching like this. He puts a question to the children about Hindus and other idol worshippers.
Do they have any intellect? No, meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
When the speaker comes closer to the camera, he only looks about 18 or 19 years old. Darul Uloom School says its pupils are taught to preach the message of Islam, and it seems our camera has filmed a senior student practicing. While he was preaching, there were teachers and other senior students keeping order in the room. But they did nothing to contradict his teachings. They told the children to be quiet and pay attention to the speaker. This is one of 38 secondary schools set up by different Islamic organizations to train the next generation of imams and community leaders. For the rest of July, there's no more teaching at Birmingham. But in the north of England, we're investigating another serious allegation. The Markazi Jamia Mosque in Keighley, West Yorkshire, is one of the country's biggest mosques. It runs a madrasa, or after-school Quran classes. Here, the allegation isn't intolerant teaching, but serious allegations that children are being hit. Again, our investigator went into the mosque, then left the camera in the room where classes take place. There are at least 2,000 madrasas in the UK, teaching more than 100,000 children how to recite the Quran. The children here are as young as 5. On the first day of filming, our camera records a brief moment, which suggests that the reports we've heard of regular violence might be true. A teacher patrols the room. And then he kicks a boy. Then he walks down the line. That was all we managed to film in the summer, and both schools broke up for the holidays. On the first day of the new term in September, we went back to Darul Uloom, Birmingham. The very first assembly back is taken by a senior teacher. The boys have been away for a month, and all of them have their haircuts checked by the teachers. Children with non-Muslim haircuts are sent to stand against the wall. The senior teacher says looking like non-Muslims is forbidden. He uses the word kafar, an often derogatory term meaning disbeliever or infidel.
There'll be regular haircut checks. Okay, you must make sure you don't get these what's fashionable now amongst in society. Okay, the kafar introduce something and we Muslims take it on the board.
He says teachers will take drastic action.
For those parents that give us permission, yeah, we've got trimmers and everything, yeah, so don't expect professional haircuts from us.
He tells them that looking like non-Muslims is a way of enslaving them. He associates British society with shaitan, the Islamic version of Satan.
You need to free yourself from the influence of the shaitan and the society. Yeah. The kuffar have brought so many new things out, and you need to free yourself from slavery. What kind of slavery am I talking about? Yes. Mind control. Yeah, mind control, mashallah. Yeah. They're controlling your minds. You're doing what they want. And ask yourself, are you part of that slavery as well? It's mind control. Are you part of those students who prefer their sunnah of the kuffar over the sunnah of the Prophet? Ask yourself. Is it simple, yes or no?
The school's last inspection praised it for promoting tolerance and harmony in society. But in this assembly, the teacher tells the boys they should hate the sinful nature of non-Muslim society.
You're not like the non-Muslim out there, all that evil you see on the streets. People not wearing hijab properly, people smoking, people walking like they got something stuck in their pants. Yeah, these kind of things, yeah? Yeah, you should hate it. They should hate walking down that street.
This is a prestigious school. It's been visited by the Lord Mayor, the Chief Constable, MPs and dignitaries. The school says it has a community involvement programme to prepare students for outside life. But on the very first day of term, our camera films 2 teachers condemning the ways of non-Muslims.
All of you are Muslims, every day in India, think that these Jews and these Christians and these atheists, I don't want you lot to copy anything of these people out there.
Who are you prepared for? People who are cutting. So never ever look at your friends outside. Put them away. Forget them, guys. When you think about your deed, listen.
The next day, a teacher gives a lesson taking a verse from the Quran, then applies it directly to the students' own lives.
Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the disbelievers as the worst of all people. However, we see, especially madrasa students, we want to, or we like to imitate them, we like to copy them in their practice. However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has classed them as the worst of all people, but instead we want to still follow them.
Dispatches has heard this kind of teaching before. 4 years ago, we investigated hardline preaching in some of Britain's mosques and filmed Undercover in Birmingham. In a mosque near the school, we recorded the then deputy headmaster of the very same school, Darul Uloom Birmingham, giving a talk condemning the concept of integrating into British society.
They talk about integration. There's an overt as well as a covert plan, a program. They talk about you need to integrate. If you don't, then you're a freak. You're strange. There's something wrong with you. Which part of this society are we supposed to take and adoptalize our life? Which one?
When we approached him for comment in 2007, the deputy headmaster said he had resigned and said he did not believe that Muslims should isolate themselves from the non-Muslim community. The school told us that the deputy headmaster had left and they didn't agree with his teachings. It told us,
"We promote the view that students should integrate."
But some of the lessons we filmed inside the school 4 years later contain similar messages against non-Muslim society.
Assalamu alaikum, class. Billahi.
The Muslim Educational Centre of Oxford runs a part-time Islamic faith school for Muslim children.
What does our religion say about other religions? Give me an example.
Its founder, Dr. Taj Hargi, is an academic and theologian.
Can we say bad things about their religion? Mock their religion? Tease them? Is it allowed? Yes, Rama.
No, because if you mock them really badly, they'll mock you really bad and you won't like that. And if you're friends with them, you get to tell them your religion and they can tell you about their religion.
Very good.
I showed Dr. Hargi the undercover footage of the teachings we'd found in Birmingham.
What did you think about the teachings, what the children were being taught about non-Muslims?
Well, this is totally against Islam. This is something that's deeply humiliating and shameful to Muslims to hear another Muslim describe people of other religions in such derogatory terms.
As bad as Muslims have become, they're not as bad as kafir.
What did you think about the repeated use of kafar?
Never would a kafir enter Jannah until a camel enters the eye of a needle.
It's like the N-word. It's a term of abuse, a term of censure, condemnation.
Some of the teachings that we've shown you, do you think they could be described as hate teachings?
There's no shadow of doubt. When you teach children that they should be intolerant of other faiths, have no respect for them, you are breeding hostility, antipathy and animosity to others. If that's not hate, what is hate?
We've been investigating this story for well over 2 years. Many of the Muslims we've approached have been too scared to talk to me on camera, and some say they've even been threatened. I'm going to meet one family in the Midlands who are prepared to talk, but feel it's only safe to do so anonymously.
Aisha is now 17. When she was 7, her mother sent her to a school run by the local mosque. But Aisha says they had a negative attitude towards non-Muslims.
I had a friend, she would meet me, she lived on the same road as me, she would meet me outside the mosque when I finished every day, an English girl, and I remember the Imam come outside, and I do remember him saying, "Look at this scoffer." I just got a feeling that they didn't like my friend.
Because she was white?
Because she was white.
What did you think about the way the word gaffer was used?
He said it in a horrible way.
Aisha's mother took action.
Summer, you decided to take the children out of the madrasa. What were your concerns about what they were being taught there?
I began to wake up to the extremism teachings going on in the mosque. They're using the terms like gaffer just because somebody isn't of the same religion. I'm teaching my children to integrate and not be racist, so I pulled my children out of mosque.
As part of the initial research at Darul Uloom Birmingham, our undercover reporter went to ask for work experience. He was told that the school follows a version of Islamic teaching known as Deobandism, a highly influential movement originating in India.
We normally follow on the syllabus. You know about India, yeah?
Investigating what's taught in Deobandi schools is extremely important. They've been long established in the UK, and the first Deobandi school was set up nearly 40 years ago. And it's a powerful movement. Around half the mosques in the UK, well over 700, are Deobandi.
This is the official website of Darul Uloom Deoband, the founding institution of the Deobandi movement. It issues regular religious rulings. At the school in Birmingham, we found British children being taught not to copy or imitate the ways of non-believers. And I found similar statements on the official Deobandi website.
The teachings here warn Muslims not to adopt the dress of sinful and debauched persons, Jews and Christians, and says people who wear pants and shirts are involved in sin and obscenity.
And it tells Muslims to avoid going into churches, saying they're the gathering place of devils. Some Muslims say that Deobandi teaching followed in schools across Britain is a hardline and intolerant version of Islam, like the director of the Muslim Institute, Dr. Ghayusuddin Siddiqui.
Because Deoband came into existence in the wake of British occupation of India, they have been developing a theology of isolations, keep away from non-believers, avoid the way they dress, the way they live, the way they behave.
What are your concerns about the teaching of Deobandi schools here in the UK?
It is very dangerous because, after all, it's our children who are going to these schools. This is outdated, it's not acceptable, and we must change.
We contacted Darul Uloom Deoband for a comment on our findings, but they did not respond. Coming up, children being beaten in the madrasa in Keighley. And further teachings of intolerance at the full-time school in Birmingham.
A person who's got less than a fistful beard, then you should stay away from him the same way you stay away from a serpent or a snake.
Dispatches is investigating Islamic faith schools in Britain. We filmed Undercover in a full-time secondary school, where we found a senior teacher preaching intolerance to 11-year-olds.
They should hate walking down that street.
And insults towards non-Muslims.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is describing the disbelievers as the worst of all people.
And we filmed Undercover at Islamic classes at Jamia Mosque in Keighley, West Yorkshire. Finding the teacher kicking two small children as they recite the Quran. We went back for the new term in September. We've been told the madrasa has a child protection policy, in which older boys are involved in running the classes. When most of the class leave for prayer time, the older ones stay behind to keep order. This teenager appears to be in charge. boy is left hurt and in tears. As he goes to hit him again with the bench, the door opens and it's the end of prayer time. On the same day, a boy kicks and hits another pupil. The older boys grab him and urge his victim to kick him in the face. When the class returns, the teacher comes over, apparently seeing what's going on, but does nothing to intervene. The next day, during the prayer break, older boys again turn on the younger children. Madrasas can be set up in mosques, community centres or private homes. There's no national body that registers and inspects them. Dispatches is investigating the teaching at another school, Darul Uloom Birmingham, a full-time secondary school which is regulated and inspected. It says it promotes harmony in society, but we've filmed its teachers condemning non-Muslim ways of life.
However, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has classed them as the worst of all people, but instead we want to still follow them.
Next, we find the teachers preaching against other Muslims. It's the second week of the new term and another assembly for all the children. The speaker launches a blistering attack on Muslims who adopt what he says are sinful, non-Islamic ways.
That this Prophet of Allah is saying that a time will come that you will see Muslim men and women, they will be listening to music and they'll be dancing. Muslim men, they will shave their beards off. You tell me, hasn't this time come? The day of judgment will not come into the Muslim women. They will take their skulls off. You tell me, hasn't this time come?
It's highly emotional preaching, but the message of intolerance towards other Muslims is clear.
And ask the people around you who are committing this sin, but you know when the angel of death comes and he rips their soul out, they will give him such a beating that this forked iron rod will enter his body and he will enter every single joint, and then the angel of death will twist thee and he will twist thee and he will twist thee. You will feel the pain. You will feel the pain on that day. That never would a kafir enter Jannah until a camel enters the eye of a needle.
This is one of many Muslim schools in Britain which belong to a highly influential Islamic movement known as Deobandism. A report 5 years ago estimated 80% of British-trained imams are being taught in Deobandi schools. Our hidden camera records how these children are being taught Deobandi theology. This teacher is introduced as a Maulana, a qualified Islamic scholar.
I'm just going to give a reminder.
He gives his lesson in Urdu, which is then translated into English. He gives them what he says is a ruling by one of the founding scholars of the Deobandi movement. Again, the message is hardline.
One of our Akabirin of Deoband, he has mentioned that a person who's got less than a fistful beard, then you should stay away from him the same way you stay away from a serpent or a snake. Same way like a cobra or something like that.
He says that being in the company of a Muslim who doesn't follow their strict rules is worse than being with a Jew.
If you are traveling, say, and your companion, the person you're traveling with, happens to be a Jew, the harm which he may do will be less compared to the harm which a person who's got less than a fistful beard can do to you. There has been no one who has actually held the cause of Islam whose beard is less than a fistful.
It's official school policy that the pupils have to follow a strict form of Islamic etiquette, including dress codes.
Those people who have their garments or trousers below their ankles, that part of your feet will be in the fire of hell. Doesn't mean just that part of the feet. The scholars of hadith have said that the whole individual will be in the fire. When I was mentioning that having your garment or trousers below your ankles, this is what women do. So why are you imitating women for?
The Maulana then says he's changing the school's disciplinary policy.
So therefore, from now on, the madrasa rule is that if anybody is caught having their trousers below their ankles, straight away they will get 2 detention.
Filming at the school was extremely difficult. We managed to record less than a dozen assemblies over 4 months. So it's only a snapshot of their teaching. But in that time, we recorded lessons that encouraged separatism, opposed integration, and condemned other Muslims. We approached the school asking for an interview or a comment on our findings. They provided us with a statement. They claimed that the senior student who gave the speech about Hindus was later reported by other students and has been expelled. No teachers were present during the incident. They claimed the Maulana who made the comments about Jews was visiting, and his views did not represent school policy. They totally rejected any assertion that their religious instruction was hardline or extremist, and they said they did not tolerate hatred towards any faith group. They said,
"Our ethos is for students to be full and active participants of British society."
They said they would study our evidence and take disciplinary measures if required. We've found evidence of the same kind of teachings being spread by teachers and graduates elsewhere in Britain. This is Darul Uloom London. It's a full-time inspected school for 150 boys. This website says it's one of the fruits of Darul Uloom London and says it's written by graduates of the school. It claims a teacher from the school has supervised the site, and some of the website's authors are now teachers elsewhere in Britain.
This website advises against special respect or close friendship with non-Muslims. It also says it may even sometimes drive Muslims out from Islam if there's any sign of love and affection for kafar in their heart.
It says music is banned as
it instills the ideologies of the non-Muslims in the heart and mind. Love, fornication, drugs and freedom, which are totally contrary to Islamic values and teachings.
The teacher from the school told us he does not and has never supervised the site, has no connection or involvement with it, and has taken steps to have his name removed. The principal of Darul Uloom London said he totally refuted the rulings given on the site, and they were not taught at his school. He would investigate the website and, if necessary, would ensure that any association with his school is removed. We showed this website and others we found with similar teachings to Rashid Ali. He's a former teacher who now runs an Islamic counter-extremism organisation.
These websites advise against close friendships with non-Muslims, and they refer to them as kafar. Is it appropriate that children are being taught this kind of thing?
When you're looking at young children, you're looking at impressionable minds. And therefore, when you're teaching children that you should almost dehumanize the other, it's a preliminary to hatred and violence. You're creating segregation in society.
He says the Deobandi movement includes a wide range of teachings and scholars who promote moderation.
This is a very virulent interpretation of Deobandism. I think there's the spectrums of thought that have classically existed. There isn't one thing called Deobandi ideology.
I went to see a senior Deobandi imam in London, Mufti Abdul Barkatullah. He thinks the kind of teachings we found are a hardline version of Deobandism, which he opposes.
There's one that says a person who's got less than a fistful of beard, you should stay away from him the same way you stay away from a snake or a cobra.
This is like a hate preaching, and they are abusing the freedom of this country to make the next generation non-Muslim phobic. They have no association with Deobandi real scholarship.
Do you recognise the sort of teachings that I've told you about being from the Deobandi movement that you see yourself?
Yeah, I fight with it all the time. But their attitude and their issues and their way of teaching is such an extreme that it is abhorrent to me.
9 days ago, the English Defence League marched in Luton Town Centre. Dr. Taj Hagi says the sort of teachings we've investigated are having a disastrous effect on relations between Muslims and non-Muslims.
There's no doubt that rising anti-Muslim bias and prejudice is directly a result of the repressive ideologies propagated by groups like the Deobandis and others. What we do is we provide to groups like the English Defence League, we give them the gun. And then we tell them, please shoot us. Of course they're going to do that.
Coming up, Dispatches examines how British law is failing children who are being subjected to treatment like this.
We won't allow this to happen to white kids going to Sunday schools.
Dispatches is investigating Islamic faith schools in Britain. We found children as young as 11 being exposed to intolerant teachings in a full-time inspected secondary school.
You're not like the non-Muslim out there. You should hate walking down that street.
And we've been filming Undercover in classes at one of the biggest mosques in the country, Jamia Mosque in Keighley, West Yorkshire. On the very first day of filming, a teacher kicked 2 boys. And older boys attacked the children in their care. In December, we filmed again and recorded this teacher taking the classes. Some of the boys being taught how to read the Quran are as young as 6 or 7. Half an hour into the lesson, then 30 seconds later, it's not clear from the footage why he hit the boy. Minutes later, he gets up again. Sometimes the boys are called up to read in front of him. It means they are in range. This is the first boy he attacked earlier. Just before the end of the lesson, he beckons a small boy over. On the second day of filming, the teacher is praying as the pupils arrive. Within 5 minutes, with class properly underway, minutes later, another pupil is called up to him. A minute later, he turns to his left. In In just 2 days of filming, the teacher hit the children at least 10 times in less than 3 hours of lessons. Serious concerns about this madrasa go back years, according to Anne Cryer, who was MP for Keighley until the last election.
In 2002, 8 years ago, it was drawn to my attention that children who attended the madrasa within the Jamia Mosque were telling teachers at the local school that they were being ill-treated, they were being beaten.
The mosque denied there was a problem, but she was told child protection procedures had been improved. But 2 years ago, she heard new reports of violence, and she raised concerns with the Department of Education. She was assured through local education sources that child protection was again being improved.
I was given the impression that the situation had been resolved, everything was all right, and therefore there were no further worries, and I accepted that.
So I showed her the footage we'd recorded, which was filmed after, she says, she received these assurances.
So what's your reaction?
I'm absolutely horrified about it, and he was quite open in the way he was hitting the kids time and again. It's just dreadful, but he clearly shouldn't be in charge of children. To have it going on in a religious institution, I think is a very sad reflection on the people who are operating that mosque.
How does that make you feel that, you know, this is something you tried to tackle in 2002?
I can't tell you how frustrated I feel. It just isn't acceptable. We won't allow this to happen to white kids going to Sunday schools. I think we should be just as concerned about the treatment of Muslim children as we are about white children.
I've spoken to a number of British Muslims who say they were hit at madrasas for not pronouncing the words of the Quran properly. The Quran is in Arabic, a language which children here often don't understand. I found one family who are prepared to talk about their experience of madrasas, but they are staying anonymous. Aisha was 7 years old when she was sent to an evening class being run by her local mosque in the Midlands. She says she didn't understand what was happening.
The teacher would sit there, tell you what to read, pronounce it to you, and then he'd go off, see the other children, and then come back to you. It's that bit that I dreaded. And I didn't understand what I was reading, and I don't know whether I would have said it right or wrong. Then he would hit me on my hands with a ruler.
And how often did that happen?
Every time you couldn't repeat it properly.
You got hit just because you couldn't pronounce something properly?
Yeah, if you couldn't get it right, yeah.
Her brother also attended the madrasa and was only 5 years old.
My brother, he actually used to get hit on his feet with a stick. And he makes me angry because they don't have a right to hit a child.
Not all madrasas are run in the same way. The Muslim Educational Centre of Oxford runs a part-time Islamic faith school and promotes a modern way of teaching.
So what's the best thing about coming to classes?
I really liked being here because I got to learn more stuff, and then I became a better Muslim because I knew more about my religion.
Faith schools like this teach the children the Quran in Arabic, but also to understand the verses in English.
And do you think you understand Islam much better from coming here?
Yeah, they teach me a lot of things, like reading and writing in Arabic.
Ash Khan is 16 years old. When he was younger, he went to other part-time schools run by mosques elsewhere in the UK.
The teacher's sitting at the front, and we all used to sit on the floor around the sides. If we didn't read it properly, we'd probably get a stick. But I did see my friends get hit.
Do you think that's the right way to
No, that's not the right way, because that's putting fear in children's eyes just to make them learn, and that's like forcing them.
So these are the symbols of the major religions.
The school's founder, Dr. Taj Hargi, opposes the traditional methods of madrasa teaching.
In other madrasas, learning is torture. Some of them beat the children, smack them, kick them, and they think by putting the fear of God, the fear of the stick, of the whip into the child, that's the best way to learn. And this is actually an outdated, archaic concept. And if we inflict violence and on our children, we instead sow the seeds of violence in them.
We were went back to Jamia Mosque again in December and again found children being hit. For most of the lessons we film, the teacher is accompanied by this man, who sits next to him, which means he's witnessing the children being hit. But he does nothing to stop it. The next time we film, the violence is unrelenting. Sir Roger Singleton has actually visited this mosque. He was the government's chief advisor for the safety of children until the last election. After Anne Cryer raised concerns about this mosque in 2009, he was asked by the government to investigate the law around hitting in faith schools.
Goodness me.
As part of his research, he went to talk to the elders at Jamia Mosque. Can you tell me about what happened when you went to visit Keighley?
I was told that corporal punishment was banned, but there were occasional clips around the ear. I feel as if I'd been misled because the degree of hitting and kicking was of a far more serious nature than I had imagined. These were not isolated incidents. This was part of the style of what happened in that mosque, and I'm therefore profoundly concerned about that.
His report concluded British law doesn't protect children like these fully. Although hitting children at all in full-time schools is completely illegal, it doesn't extend to madrasas. The law still says a teacher in a madrasa or other supplementary school has a defence for hitting a child, as long as it doesn't leave a mark, if he can claim it's a reasonable punishment. Sir Roger's calling on the government to address this.
The government does need to change the law to make it absolutely crystal clear that no form of physical punishment of hitting or kicking is permissible in our faith schools.
Last week, the Department of Education told us it was opposed to physical punishment in supplementary schools and would be meeting Sir Roger shortly to discuss changing the law. We asked Jamia Mosque for an interview or statement on our findings. They told us in a statement.
Having received no complaints from pupils or their parents, the committee was shocked and appalled to learn of these allegations and resolved to investigate the matters fully.
The mosque said they would cooperate with any investigation by the authorities and would ensure that any further measures which are felt necessary for the protection of pupils at the mosque will be fully implemented. Their statement didn't answer our most important questions. The Jamia Mosque haven't addressed our main allegations that the beatings have been going on for as far back as 2002 and also what they're going to do about it now, so I'm going to go and try and talk to them. The Vice President of the mosque comes to the door.
Are you sorry, not one from that. You don't film through.
Whoa, what have you got to hide? Can't you just open... Well, how are you going to hear what I have to say?
Sorry about that.
Come on, you can open the door and talk to me.
I can't talk if you open it, but don't come out.
Hello? Can I tell you where I'm from and why I want to talk to you?
I'd like to talk to you, but what?
Why is that? Why are you hiding away from the camera? I can see a few men in the background who seem to be having a discussion about whether they should come and talk to us or not. So we've tried to talk to someone who can speak to us on behalf of the mosque. He's basically hidden away, he's refused to talk to us, and he's absolutely unequivocal they won't talk to us today. While we were at the mosque, we were approached by the local councillor, Khadim Hussain.
On whose authority you're making the film here?
We're from Channel 4's dispatches.
I fully understand.
Can you speak to us on behalf of the mosque?
We can't speak actually because I think we have already...
He said he wasn't speaking on behalf of Jamia Mosque, but he seemed to have spoken to them.
My understanding is they have a meeting with those individuals, they've asked everybody, they're doing whatever is necessary actually to get to the bottom of the problem.
Are those madrasa classes still running? Are they still running at the moment? Will there be one tonight in half an hour's time?
Well, that's something, you have to...
This is a serious child protection issue.
Precisely, that's why taking it so seriously.
Then he accused us of endangering children.
Until you come out clean and say, look, this is the footage, this is actually taking place, so they can take it. You put in if that is the case, you put in the life, the security and safety of those children at risk.
The man who's beating them in there is the one who's placing them at risk. We're exposing it. How can you say that we're...
You need to act now. Because you need to, protect those vulnerable children according to... If you do it in the interest of children, then you should have given that footage.
So it's our responsibility. The children are at risk because of us. Will someone from the mosque talk to us? Anybody from the mosque will talk to us?
My understanding is that they will not do it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
A man has now been arrested in connection with the incidents in Jamia Mosque, and police investigations are ongoing. 9 days ago, David Cameron promised to crack down on the roots of extremism.
Under the doctrine of state multiculturalism, we've encouraged different cultures to live separate lives apart from each other and apart from the mainstream.
But at the same time, his government is encouraging local communities to set up and run their own schools.
I think it's really important that we say to head teachers and to everyone who works in schools, we trust you. We want you to have more power and more say over what happens in schools.
It's a policy which is likely to result in more faith schools.
Our 2-year investigation has uncovered teachings of intolerance and the hitting and kicking of young children, all of it going undetected by the authorities. With the number of faith schools set to grow, these lessons in hate and violence, continuing behind closed doors, will only serve to deepen the religious and social divide.
We should wake up and recognize the damage these schools are doing to our young men and women.
We are going into full-scale religious apartheid and social segregation and separation. And unless we tackle this now, we will reap the whirlwind.